Welcome to the Champs App podcast, where we help players and parents demystify the world of minor hockey development and recruiting for both girls and boys. This is one of my favorite episodes of the Champs App podcast. Today, we talk with Natalie Darwitz, who is currently the assistant coach with the Minnesota Golden Gophers women's hockey team and was elected to the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame after an illustrious college and national team career. She goes into great detail about her youth hockey development and how she became an Olympic captain. Like I said, this is one of my favorite guests we've had, so I really hope you enjoy it. Before we get to our guest, if you enjoyed this episode and want us to keep making more of them, please share it with teammates and friends. You can also subscribe, like, follow, and even better, it would be great if you would leave us a review. Now, let's drop the puck and get to the show. I'm very excited to have on the Champs App podcast, Natalie Darwitz, who is currently the assistant coach with the Minnesota Golden Gophers women's hockey team. But what she is most known for is as a USA Hockey Hall of Famer, three-time Olympic medalist, captain of the U.S. women's national and Olympic hockey team, two-time NCAA national champion, and all-time points per game leader with the Golden Gophers. And finally, proud mama to Zachary and Joseph. Welcome to the podcast, Natalie.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Ray.
I'm so honored and really delighted to have you on the podcast. Why don't we start out, learn a little bit more about how you got into the great game of hockey, starting out in St. Paul, Minnesota, and your My Little Pony rollerblades.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to, looking back, to be the youngest of three siblings. And my brother, my older brother Ryan, kind of was involved in hockey, and my sister, being the oldest of the family, was an athlete too. But back in that day, tap dancing and ballet and stuff like that were kind of the norm for our female. So being the youngest, naturally, I was carted around the rink. I had to choose which parent to go with, either mom and sister to tap dance, or dad and Ryan to hockey, and kind of always gravitated towards going to the hockey rink and running around the rink. So, my grandma bought me a pair of My Little Pony roller skates at the time, and put them on and put a stick in my hands, and kind of the rest is history, and kind of just stayed on my parents and was resilient and said, when do I get to play hockey? When do I get to play hockey? And obviously there was a huge hesitation on my mom's part because no other girls were really playing hockey at that time. It was pretty dominated by the male gender, and I just stayed on them, and my mom and dad finally caved and said when I turned 5 years old, they'd sign me up. And good thing is I was an October birthday, so the result happened pretty quickly with hockey season being right around the corner in the winter. So once I got on the ice at 5, the rest is history. I just fell in love with it. It was first thing I woke up thinking about in the morning, and the last thing on my mind before I hit the pillow at night. So it's just a passion of mine, and I love to do it, and really look forward to going to hockey, whether that was at practice or just going in the driveway and putting on the rollerblades and skating around, or going to the outdoor rink. It just it was something that made my hands sweaty and heartbeat faster.
And was it just like natural for you just to want to be doing that all the time, or like did you explore other sports at the same time and then go like hockey's the one that I really want to be spending my time on? And when did that really become a reality? Was it really at 5 years old, or was it like 9, 10, 11?
Yeah, I grew up playing the gamut of the sports you grew up as a kid playing, whether that's soccer, track, softball, you name it. You kind of did the seasonal sports. But for me, what stood out was hockey was the one I really looked forward to. So I knew there was a difference right from the get-go. I just again, got a little bit more excited when hockey rolled around. I love playing all different sports, and honestly, looking back, it was a huge, I think, part of why I was a successful hockey player is because I was a well-rounded athlete and did different things. But at the end of the day, hockey kind of always, spoke to my heart a little bit more than the other ones. But I stuck out. As a young kid, I stuck out playing most sports. I was seasonal, hockey in the winter, softball in the spring and summer, and then, sprinkling soccer in the fall and stuff like that. But I think when I got to the middle school like part of my life, that's when I kind of concentrated a little bit more on hockey and softball are my top two sports. And then, joining the high school team as a 7th grader, it kind of just took up a little bit more of my time. So I kind of just focused on those two sports. And then in downtime, I played other sports, just casually and for fun with buddies, whether that was just going to the field and running around or playing soccer or golf or tennis. I just love being active and playing other sports.
Gotcha. So when you were in grade 7 is when it sounds like you started to take hockey seriously. And so you must have been 11 or 12 at the time, I'm assuming. And so at that time, about how many hours per week were you actually training for hockey or doing hockey related stuff?
Well, I mean, I always took hockey seriously, so it kind of became a reality when I was in 7th grade that there was a pretty good future for me to do it.
Yeah.
Um, as far as minutes trained or time trained, I honestly don't even know. Some of it was obviously organized hockey and training and stuff like that. And the rest of the day was I was choosing to do more. Whether that
And
was grab some buddies and go play roller hockey in our high school parking lot, or shoot pucks in the driveway, or play my brother one-on-one. From that on, it was just me. I enjoyed to do it. I loved to do it. So it wasn't to me training or work or
yeah.
logging hours. It was just like something I wanted to do in my time.
So we'll get into a little bit more about having your dad as a coach, but you know, these days kids have a skating coach, a shooting coach, a strength and conditioning coach. Like, what kind of coaching were you getting outside from your dad at that time to kind of help improve all your skill set?
Yeah, I mean, my dad coached me in the high school season, and obviously, if I asked him to come out and pass with me in the driveway, he certainly would. And then there was probably, my high school coach, Merlin Ravendalen, was a great a resource for me too. But he wasn't pushing me to do extra. That was something I just wanted to do on my own. As far as like the extra stuff, we always worked with a guy named in Minnesota who's a pretty prominent name. His name was Jack Blatherwick, and he kind of started this program called Community Olympic Development Program for aspiring Olympians, females, and I loved him. And I think we did that in the off season a couple of times a week and worked out with him in the weight room and stuff like that. So he was kind of my main guy, but I didn't really have a skate coach, a shooting coach. We just kind of did it on our own. And I think that's the coolest thing and the best way to do it is we just kind of became rink rats and learned hockey IQ and to shoot the puck faster and learn moves by going out there and doing it, kind of trial and error. So yeah, now it's different. There's a market for a skating coach, a shooting coach, a video coach, this and that to help your resources. But at the end of the day, I think for the top players and myself, we wanted to go do that stuff on our own. We didn't necessarily need somebody critiquing us. We would just like, well, that toe drag didn't work or that worked. And we just kind of were trial and error and out there being kind of rink rats.
Gotcha. All right. And obviously your skating was pretty good because you were playing with the boys. And I believe a quote from your dad was, they can't hit you if they can't catch you. So how important was skating to your development? And then we'll get into your scoring in a second.
Yeah, I mean, I think your skating is your bread and butter. If you can't get to the puck and be as efficient as you can on your skates, you're going to not get there quick and then be really tired when you do. So, it's cheesy, but I kind of equate skating to a sports car. They're efficient, they're quiet, they're fast. If you're good on your skates, it's kind of the same thing. We don't want to be a semi truck out there, wide turns, heavy feet. So for me, skating was really important. I'll be honest with you, some of it came natural by just being a rink rat and working on it and setting that foundation. Later in my career, Diane Ness is a really good skating coach in Minnesota and nationally, and she works with the Minnesota Wild and actually used to work with our 2010 Olympic team. She was the first time I ever had a skating coach, and I'll be honest with you, I learned quite a bit and realized like I could always better my skating. So, I think it's super important to just, again, that's your bread and butter. You got to get to the puck fast and as efficiently as possible without burning a whole lot of energy. So I think that's probably the biggest focus of young hockey players to work on, because that's going to just set the tone for the rest of your career, where it's really hard to change those habits once you kind of set them.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, so obviously you're a very good skater, but you were also a phenomenal scorer, and both goals and assists. You didn't discriminate between the two. So you talked about trial and error as a kid of just trying things out on the pond or with your friends doing one-on-one. So what made you such a good scorer? Was it just practice, 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 or was it natural? Because there's a couple coaches that I've spoken to on this podcast who played on the Olympic team who said, "To be honest with you, I was just really good at it." So, what was your perspective on your success of actually being a prolific point getter?
Yeah, I think for me, I think the end result was obviously could you score, could you set up a player? But I think so often we focus on goals and assists. It's the process of getting there. So for me, um, my coach, obviously growing up, who I mentioned before, Jack Blatherwick, he said something to me that just resonated my entire career. Is he said, "Natalie, every time you hop over the boards or you're at a face-off, you either need to think about, you need to be the most dominant player on that shift. And if you're at a face-off, you want the kid lined up across from you to go, oh crap, I have to go against Natalie." So that was my mentality. So if I brought that mentality to every shift, my chances of scoring obviously were higher. My percentage of scoring was higher in those games. So to me, dominance means, do I have the puck on my stick? Am I winning board battles? Am I coming out with the corner with the puck? Am I flying around with the puck in open ice? Am I winning draws? Am I hitting my open player and then joining the play? So for me, it was more about what is the process I need to do and how do I want to play? And that will bleed into hopefully an end result that I'll get on the score sheet and help my team out.
And so in all of your years of playing hockey, did you ever have the center across from you say, "Oh crap"? Did you ever hear them say that out loud?
Maybe not out loud, but maybe hopefully in their heads they were. But on the ice, sometimes you look the other center or forward in the eyes on a draw, and you can tell or their demeanor. So it's, for me, that was my thing. It was like, could I focus on the process in every shift, be the most dangerous player I could be, whether that was D zone, neutral zone, or offensive zone. I wanted to make an impact. And I think so often we can get wrapped up into how many points and how many this and that and stats. We go watch a hockey game and we can tell, I want that kid who comes out of the corner with the puck. I don't care how big or small she is. Doesn't matter. I want that player who comes out of the corner with the puck, because she has that innate tenaciousness, that grit, that competitive level that you want in players.
And we didn't talk about this earlier, but for folks who don't know, you're only 5'3", and in the 3 Olympics that you played on, there was only one player who was actually shorter than you in all those teams. By the way, do you know who that player was?
I'm gonna go with Erica Lawler.
You got it. 5'1" in 2010. There you go. Yeah. All right. So when you talk about coming out of the puck, doesn't matter how big they are. Obviously, with your size, you were coming out with the puck quite a bit, and it didn't matter how big you were.
Yep. That's the goal. And obviously Erica, you just mentioned, she played the same way. And who cares if she's 5'0" or whatever? Like, she was an absolute pit bull in the corners, and came out with the puck against somebody who was like 6 foot, 200 pounds. So that's all that matters, really.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so you went to Egan High School. Your dad was the coach. So tell us what it was like playing for your dad, and then, were there any times where he made your life difficult because he wasn't happy with how you were playing?
Yeah, I love my dad. I'm super, looking back at my career, super grateful and fortunate that I got that time with my dad. I mean, how cool is that? You got to go to the rink and do something you love every day with your father. There's a bond there that will last a lifetime because of that, So, talk about going through the trenches, highs and lows. We were together doing that for, 5, 6, 7 years, of him coaching my high school team. And then obviously just being with him, being my dad, and going out and playing shinny hockey and stuff like that. So it was super, super grateful. There was a little bit of a buffer at times. If he coached primarily D and I was a forward. So there was that buffer at some times where he always wasn't in my ear, which I think it was a good thing too. But at the end of the day, I was such a competitor that I wanted to do my best. And my dad really never got on me or yelled at me. It was, if I wasn't playing well or I was making some stupid plays, he didn't have to say a whole lot. It was just a look of, I knew. And the last thing I want is, number one, to not play to the best of my ability. Number two, I'd never want to disappoint my dad. And I knew the times where I was disappointing him, whether because I wasn't working hard enough or just being a dummy, he just had to give me that look. But I do remember early on in my youth career, I think I was a peewee and we were playing a summer hockey game, and he happened to be the coach of that team or one of the coaches, and I just was stupid and I like retaliated and was just being an idiot, right? And he sat me for a few shifts, and I was just PO'd, and I was mad at him. And then he finally let me back out, and I scored the game-winning goal. So I feel like I kind of redeemed myself a little bit, but he just said after the game, never do that again. And that was a really great lesson to me, and set me
I
straight
never did it again.
for the rest of my career.
Yeah. Gotcha. So you talk about a tournament as a youth player. What is your best youth hockey memory?
Just growing up with the boys on the boys teams, just just a lot of people always ask me like, how was it in the locker room? And I have to give so much credit and respect to the guys I grew up playing with. They didn't treat me like a girl. I was their teammate. And that was just so fun to just walk in the locker room and they were my buddies and I was theirs. And now that we're old and gray and I run into some of the guys or some people I played against, they were just like, man, at the time we wanted to crush you, but you were so good, or it was so tough to play against you. And I don't think I would have been the player that I grew up being if I didn't start out playing with the guys. I really don't. They taught me so much, and really it was because of that foundation that I was able to grow in my career with on the women's side.
Gotcha. And you mentioned him a little bit earlier. I think you mentioned Merlin Ravdolin as was one of your coaches.
Yep.
So who is Coach R, and why is he your favorite coach? Because I believe I heard you mention him somewhere as being one of your favorite coaches.
He was just a fun guy, fun coach to play for. He made going to the rink really enjoyable and fun. He made things fun. Obviously, he demanded a work ethic and accountability, but at the same time, the game is supposed to be fun, and he made it that way. And I just have a lot of respect for him as a coach and his past, and just how he treats players and coaches his teams. He was just a really stand-up character person that I just loved going to the rink for him, and always had a great contagious energy on the ice that was positive. But at the same time, I love coaches that are willing to make you grow and hold you accountable and push you out of your comfort zone, and that's what he did.
Awesome. Okay, so let's move on to kind of moving past high school. So you were the youngest player to be selected to the national team at age 15. So if there are parents out there with a 15-year-old daughter whose daughter hasn't made the U.S. national team by 15, are they a disappointment?
No. No. Times have changed. I don't know if a 15-year-old is going to make a national team just because the game has grown and the depth of the game has gotten so great. So, timing for me was, it just worked out, but, now just look at the opportunities women's hockey players are getting. They're playing longer, a lot of the longevity of women's hockey players back when I was playing is after college, they were done. And now you're seeing Brianna Deckers and Kendall Coynes, play into their high 20s. And so just times have changed. And so when players are playing longer, obviously it's going to be harder to crack that lineup. But certainly there's a player on the national team right now.
Caroline Harvey.
What's that?
Caroline Harvey.
Caroline Harvey, who's 18 years old, who obviously made the team. So, there are some exceptions, and the cool thing is that's great to see is Team USA or Team Canada or whoever it may be are going to take players who feel that they can compete and impact their team in a positive way.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit more about that, being such a young player on the team. So we've had, some of your former teammates like Katie King-Crowley, Shelley Looney, and then specifically Janelle Zog, Sergey, and Lindsay Fry talked about the stress of making their first Olympic team. So how stressful was it for you to make the 2002 Salt Lake team?
Obviously it's intense, and there's a lot at stake. And it's nerve-wracking. For me, it was just a matter of I was on the team for 3 years, 3 years prior. So I kind of knew my role. So for me, it was like I just had to continue to do that at tryouts, and I feel like I had a pretty good opportunity. Um, and again, my mentality is every time I want to hop on the ice, I want to be the best player on the ice. And so I kind of went into that mentality of the Olympics of like I want to be like rated the number one, number two, number three player here. And that was my mentality my entire career. So honestly, I was more nervous for like teammates I had on my team who I wanted to make the team and get a shot. So it was not being egotistical or anything like that, but I just knew if I played my game, I'd be on that team.
Gotcha. And for folks who don't know, you finished second in scoring on the U.S. team in 2002. So it probably wasn't a surprise to you that you made the team, given that you leading up to that, you were probably up there in the scoring on the team already. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I was blessed to play with Cammie and Granado and Christy Wendell that mostly that entire year. So that was just a whole lot of fun.
All right, we're going to get back to Chrissy Wendell in a moment when we talk about your time in Minnesota. But I got one question for you about the Olympics. So for folks who don't know, you got 3 medals out of it. Unfortunately, none of them were gold. But you had done so well against Canada in basically all 3 of those Olympic years leading up to them playing against the Canadian team. So here's my question: should the gold medal in the Olympics just be a 2-week best-of-7 series with Canada, and have all the other countries play for bronze, except for unless Finland happens to be pretty good one year? And would it be the best way to grow the fan base of women's hockey by doing that? And if it was best of 7, how many gold medals do you think you would have by now?
To take off a politically correct hat, and talk as a competitor who was in those 3 Olympics, absolutely 7-game series with Canada, and you're always going to get the other side of the fence of, well, does that grow the sport? Does that help the other countries?
Until they get good, until they can prove that they're that good. That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
I get that. But our countries bring out the best in each other. It's the highest level of hockey. It's your zen. So yeah, I would have loved a 7-game series. In 2002 especially, I mean, we ran the table pre-Olympic. I think we were 7-0 leading up to Salt Lake Olympics. Then it comes down to 1 game, right? So that 1 game we had, we probably had a B-level game. We didn't have our best game, but if we had 6 more games to get a crack at it, would the result would have been different? I hope so.
Statistically speaking, if the past was a predictor of the future, then the answer would be yes, for sure. Yes,
yeah. Yep. Right. So yeah, I do think the fans want to see the best hockey possible. So would they rather see Canada and the U.S. beat the absolute daylights out of each other every single game and have a hard-fought competitive game? I personally would, versus the U.S. team beat another country by a few goals or a larger margin.
I think it'll be the best possible thing for women's hockey. 7 games in the Olympics. That would just grow the sport, because every game people would be watching at like the highest level in North America for sure, and even in the other countries, just so they go like, why can't we be like them? All right, let me move over to let's talk about University of Minnesota. So you're one of the few players who played in the Olympics before going to college, kind of like Kayla Barnes. We talked about Caroline Harvey. So, and you chose University of Minnesota because, as I understand, not a lot of choices back then in terms of what your options were, because Wisconsin wasn't as good as it is now as a school. So, and plus you're from St. Paul, so you probably want to stay close to home. I know you're a bit of a homebody. So my question to you is, was it a big step down now having to play college hockey? Like, most people who are used to playing at the highest level have trouble playing at a lower level, for extended periods of time, because it can be frustrating. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's, obviously, like you said, it's pretty unique to do that. Not many players do that. Myself and Christy Wendell were fortunate enough to go through that process with her, because she was doing the same exact thing at the University of Minnesota. So to go back to colleges and picking them. I mean, at the end of the day, I grew up here and watched the guys team on TV every Friday and Saturday night, and kind of it's ingrained in you to wear the maroon and gold and everything. So making that decision was kind of a no-brainer to stay close to home and have my family be able to watch. because the Olympic year was tough. I mean, we were usually in upstate New York training and playing, and didn't get to see that whole much. So that just reconfirmed to me that I wanted to stay home.
Yeah.
But as far as, coming back and feel like I'm playing down a level, I don't know if that necessarily was the case, because we were the Gophers at that time, coming back with a few Olympians. Everybody was gunning for us. We had a target on our back. So we had to play our best game every single night. Not only that is, again, my mentality is can I be the best player on each shift, right? So that's how I went at it, is just saying, okay, I might be at a little bit of a different level with the people I'm playing with and against, but I want to still be the most dominant player. How do I do that? So obviously logged a little bit more ice time and stuff like that. But I love college. It was a time, actually, I was looking forward to it because, for the last few years of my life, I was playing on the Olympic team or national team with players that ranged in age of 17 to 30.
Yeah.
So now it was quite refreshing to go back and do a setting where I was around players and people of my same age range. And to me, that was a part of life I was craving again.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. So at the time, after your first 3 years at Minnesota, you were the all-time leading scorer since a couple of folks have eclipsed it, but you got 246 points in only 99 games. So roughly 2.5 points per game. So, but my real question is, I have two questions, is why did you only play 26 games in your sophomore year? Otherwise you'd have a heck of a lot more points and you would have reached 100 games at least. And then I'll follow that up after you answer that question with another question related to your stats.
A lot has changed. Obviously I'm a coach there now, and these guys play 35 games regular season. I don't think we did that.
But Chrissy Wendell played 10 more games than you do. So you had 10 less games.
My sophomore year, I had a injury. So,
that's what I was wanting to know in your sophomore year. Exactly.
Yeah, I tore ligaments and tendons in my elbow area. We were playing against Duluth up there, and I just ran into a player wrong. Played the rest of the game, and afterwards, my elbow just ballooned up on me, and I knew it wasn't good. So again, I was super fortunate though, because quite honestly, it should have been a season-ending injury, and I was just really diligent about my rehab, and my trainer at the time, Amy Hamilton, was amazing and stayed on me, and I just did everything I was supposed to do and more with it, and I came back after 10 games. So I actually was really lucky. Even the doctor was like, this normally doesn't happen. So I got super lucky there. So yeah, I missed 10 games and then made it back for the end of the year and going
to the national championship.
Championship.
So probably the big difference between you guys winning the national championship was your recovery, basically. So
maybe not, I don't know, but I'm glad that it worked out that way.
I'm going to bet a nickel it was. All right. And so my other question related to your stats was, so you played 99 games and you had 98 PIMs. So you were no shrinking violet on the ice. What kind of player were you if you were getting basically 1 minute per game when you
I had 98 penalty minutes.
98 penalty minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Geez, that was a hack, I guess.
Chrissy Wendell had a little bit more than you, but not by much. So I did check that. You two
funny.
Were competitive.
I had no idea I had that many penalty minutes. Yeah, that's a minute a game. That's a penalty a game, eh?
But at 5'3", you were not afraid to go into the corners.
You know what I'll chalk it up to? I think back in that day, a lot of penalty minutes were we had the puck on our stick and we were getting hacked and slashed and whacked, and they would fall over and we would get in trouble for it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'll chalk it up to that.
All right. Last playing at Minnesota question. So you obviously bookended your time at University of Minnesota by playing in the Olympics. What was your decision making around not going back to play a fourth year, even though you went back to finish your degree?
Yeah, that was still a decision I question every day. 2005, 2006, we had to take a year off for the Olympics in Torino, and that was a really, really, really tough year mentally and physically. That was the year we started out our tryouts, and Cami Granato and Shelley Looney were cut. And it just kind of snowballed into the rest of the year. Now, if you ask that question of a 7-game series with Canada that year, I don't know. I think we may get swept. It just was a tough year. So it was just a grind for me mentally and physically, and I was just questioning, like, do I want to continue on to play hockey? Because the fire was kind of going out, the competitive fire. And so I chose not to go back and go to the Gophers. I was just like, you know what, I need some me time and figure this out. In retrospect, obviously, I think college years are your best years of your life, and I do regret that. However, that decision and taking time off led me to reflect and go, wait a minute, I do miss hockey. I do want to continue to go. And so that time off propelled me to go another 4 years to 2010.
Gotcha,
So
gotcha.
a
So
little
did you,
bit of hindsight into that. And, again, I don't know if I could go back and do that decision differently, because I don't know if I would have got the same result.
but do you still have a year of eligibility? Is that what you're saying?
I
So you can still
might.
go. Yeah, I think maybe we should talk to Coach
Might
Brad.
come
And
up this weekend against Wisconsin, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Player
All
coach,
right.
right?
All right, now let's move into transitioning into coaching. So you started off your coaching career after you retired to I believe helping out University of Minnesota as an assistant coach, or while you were still training. And then you went and helped out your dad back at Egan High School. So like many top players struggle to become coaches, because a lot of what they did was natural. Being able to communicate to other players, here's how to think about it, here's what to do. How have you been able to make that transition so successful?
When I didn't get into coaching because I wanted to. My dad I think he saw what could possibly be in me, and so he kind of twisted my arm and said, "Hey, just come for 1 day a week," and then it turned into a couple days a week. Then it turned into I was there every day, and what I found was actually helped it helped me in my playing game as well. So I just saw things differently from the bench. Now I had to communicate them. I couldn't hop over the boards and do it myself. I had to learn good communication skills, how to communicate differently to different players. And so it bled over into me now in the later years of my career, being a leader on that team. And honestly, I don't think I would have became a captain of Team USA if I didn't get into coaching when I did, because it
Oh, really?
really helped me relate and build relationships in the locker room with my teammates, because I had to start being vocal and communicate with coaching. So I really think it was just, looking back at my career, it was just a thing that happened that propelled me to the next level.
So I'd heard on a previous podcast that up until that point, you were more of a leader by example, and now you're saying that you then more focused now on actually being more verbal and helping, develop other players and bringing them along with you. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, most of my career, I just was like, I just got to go do my thing, right? If I can take care of my business, I'm going to help the team. And it just turned to, wait a minute here. I'm not making much of an impact on others if I'm not bringing them along with me. And so I just really got out of my shell. I'm very introverted by nature. I don't like to speak up a whole lot. And it got me out of my shell. Coaching got me out of my shell to now, how do I communicate with coaching? And that brought me along to my teammates of like, hey, how can I bring you up and increase your game as well? And I think that was kind of just the aha moment that went off in my head, and it's probably why I became a leader on that team, or voted captain.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your coaching kind of trajectory. So you helped out your dad for a couple of years. You then coached your own high school team in Minnesota for a couple of years, and then you spent, up until this season, several years at Hamline University as the head coach of the Division III program, and you really took them to new heights. You want to just talk about your experience there and what you learned while you're at Hamline?
Yeah, the Hamlin job was great. Like many things in life, it came to me. I think once you're ready for the next step, I think the doors open. So the AD approached me 6 years ago, and I really didn't have an interest. I was happy with high school hockey, and it's fun here and stuff like that. But the thought of being able to build something from scratch was a huge challenge to me, and something that I was kind of hungry for. And so decided to take that job. And another blessing happened where my assistant coach at Hamlin, Jake Bobrowski, we just honestly clicked and saw the game alike, but yet have different strengths, and we use those strengths to better our team. And then I got to coach another few years with my dad as the D coach. So it was really a great opportunity to start something from scratch, and that we certainly did. The first year, the team we had, we inherited. And it was cool because we saw significant growth out of them. You know, they won more games that year than they ever had in the previous 4 or something like that. And then we just, now by recruiting, we got to build our own program, and we started the following year with 14 recruits, and then the following year brought in more recruits, but better ones.
Yeah.
And by year 3, we really only had, I think, 1 player from the last coach. So it was starting to be our program. And in year 3, we won a MIAC championship and went to the Frozen Four and got 3rd place. So it happened really fast. But I think the D3 level allowed us to build it fast. And it was just a whole lot of fun. And then adding on moving into Trier Rink with a Minnesota Wild play, and the stands being packed and the buzz around our program. When we went to that program, I mean, people didn't know that Hamlin had a women's hockey program. And the time when we left, people knew that at Hamlin, they had a really good women's hockey program.
Yeah.
That's what they were known for. So we certainly left that place in a better spot than when we found it. It was a super tough decision to honestly leave Hamlin this summer and go to the University of Minnesota. But at the end of the day, I think our blood just gets good, and we want to be around players of the top level and caliber. Yeah. So going to the rink right now with the University of Minnesota and those players who want to get better, crave to get better, it's just a joy to coach them. And it's not to say that the players at Hamlin didn't, but we're around players that are world class and who have aspirations to play in the Olympics.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, so but before we get to Minnesota, because we need to talk about your current school and your alma mater. But my question for you is, you talk about making the players better over time. What have you done over the last year to become a better coach?
Yeah, it's you always got to be evolving and learning and growing. And I think as coaches, you're constantly put in adverse situations where you have to. I think if you stay the same, if you have the same way of thinking, if you're not getting outside your comfort zone, I think the game and the players are going to pass you by. I think the biggest transition for me from going to Hamlin to here is at Hamlin, I was the head coach, and now I'm back as an assistant coach. And so what normally I would have the reins to, like, oh, wait a minute, we need to do this better. I have to go to Brad and share those thoughts and be on the same page as him. And there might be days where he disagrees or I don't agree with what he says, but at the end of the day, we got to put the best product on the ice and do the best we can. So I think that's probably the biggest transition. But every day I feel like I'm pushing myself to grow as a coach and a person. And I think that's really important to our players in our program and the players that we coach. The other thing, it's building relationships, I think are absolutely crucial. I think if the players know that you care about them, you have confidence in them, you can help them do it, I think the sky's the limit for them. So that's just something that I feel that very strongly about is I want the players that I coach to know that I care about them and want the best for them. At the same time, I'm going to push them in a way that's going to get them out of their comfort zone, but it's for the betterment of them.
Gotcha. Okay, great. So now you're back at University of Minnesota for second time as a coach, third time when you consider your playing career. How has Ritter Arena changed in the almost 20 years since you helped open it up back in 2002?
Yeah, it's crazy that I was there when we opened it up, and just that place now has nostalgia. It has history, right? You can look in your backdrop. There's a lot of banners hanging, lot of All-Americans on the wall, Olympians on that far wall. It's just a special, unique place and dedicated to women's hockey only. I think the only other place in the country right now is Lebanon and maybe in Wisconsin, if I'm correct, that is dedicated only to women's hockey. So it certainly has an intimidation factor walking in there with the banners and the history and the pride that's in that rink. And you know, I'm biased. I'm from Minnesota, but I feel like we have a good hockey hotbed in our backyard, and there's certainly an atmosphere. No matter if you're playing a bottom team or a top team, there's certainly an atmosphere in Ritter when you play there.
Gotcha. And related to that, Brad Frost has been there quite a long time. So what makes him such a good coach? He just signed an extension just about a month ago. What makes him such a great coach?
Well, I think we talked about it before. Is like, yeah, I think he cares a whole lot. I think his players knows that he cares, and so I think that's just going to translate into the players playing hard and playing hard for you. So obviously he knows this hockey well, and again, it's about, you know, he always says it's about giving the players an experience, and I think with the resources at the University of Minnesota and the hockey culture and the background that the University of Minnesota has, that certainly provides that experience.
Gotcha. And let's talk about the rest of the staff. Joel Johnson and Bethany Browson moved over to St. Thomas. We had Bethany on the podcast a few episodes ago. And so not only did you come over from Hamlin, you also brought, who also came with you was, I guess, Jake Bobrovsky, who's also now an assistant coach from Hamlin. So a lot of chemistry obviously going on here between the three of you. And not only you guys from Minnesota, 19 out of 25 of your players are from Minnesota. So what's with all the players from Minnesota, and does anybody from outside Minnesota really have a chance at playing at Minnesota?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you know, obviously I don't think anyone was expecting quite the musical chairs of coaching staff changes this summer. You know, as I stated, I was happy at Hamlin, and so was Jake, and we were looking forward to possibly vying for a national championship at the D3 level. And then, you know, St. Thomas job kind of, we you know, they moved on from their old coach and wanted a new coach, and that was Joel, and then Bethany went along with them, and that opened up 2 assistant spots at the U. And you know, when Brad initially approached me, I was like, yeah, it sounds good, but I got another good person in mind for the other assistant role. And I'm glad he was open enough to take a look at Jake. And I think now being half of the way in through our season, Jake's been an awesome addition as well. So, but as far as, you know, majority of our roster being from Minnesota, that's simply, and I'm a product of it. You grow up wanting to be a Gopher. I mean, you're watching it on TV. It's a huge presence in our state. You open the paper, there's write-ups about the hockey team, and you know, and the history of the program certainly speaks for itself. So I think we naturally draw Minnesota players, and we have to continue that. Obviously now there's a lot more options and really good options to go play hockey at other schools. And, you know, now that's, whether that's a couple miles away or, you know, a couple hour drive away, there's a lot of top schools around us. And so the competition has gotten greater. At the same time, that makes us more competitive to go get those top Minnesota players. We want to get, if we can, the top Minnesota players that we can to come to the University of Minnesota. Now, we're not biased. If there's other players in the country or in other countries that we feel would impact our program and our culture of our team, we're certainly going to go after those players.
Yeah, I believe you do have a couple of Canadians that you let in on
yeah, we let them
in. All right. So I'll be candid with you. I probably only asked half the questions that I want to ask you, because you're just like a fountain of information and insight. But I do need to start wrapping it up. Can we talk about a little bit about the recruiting process, where things are at today, given the COVID, the 5th-year eligibility, all that kind of stuff, where things stand? I know you've had a couple of decommits, which is a little bit shocking from Minnesota. but yet you do have a pretty full roster, and you already have, I believe, 8 commits for 2022 and 2023 already listed on the college commits website. So where are you guys at with how you're thinking about recruiting, and what are some of the challenges that you're seeing because of what's gone on with all the rule changes and the COVID situation?
Yeah, obviously COVID presented its own kind of, whether you want to look at it as an obstacle or opportunity. We're going to use it as an opportunity. I feel like we have a strong senior class this year, and if those players are eligible to come back for a 5th year and impact the team, I think that's step one. The next step is it's hard because other schools, and you saw a lot of transfers, from bouncing around just to go to school for a year and play their COVID year. So it's kind of been crazy and funky in the whirlwind in the college hockey transfer portal. But we want players at Minnesota that bleed maroon and gold. There's a two-way street. Obviously, you're valued, good hockey players and the character you have. At the same time, this is a really prestigious program. And we want you to come in and be a part of that program and to add to it, not be an eye in that program. So I think that there's been a little bit of a culture shift probably in the last few months, that it's really important that you put the program first and care about this program. And we're going to conduct ourselves in that way. So not one person is bigger than the team. And that's how we are staying in the locker room, and that's what we want that product to be on the ice. Is we want you to be able to see, wow, this Gopher team plays, because they want the puck, they don't want to lose a battle, they're gritty, they're hardworking, they play with heart. That's really important to us. And so as far as recruiting, we want to continue that trend and get those players that want to continue that and to play that way. And there's times where, unfortunately, really good hockey players, that might not be what they're looking for, and so they might go elsewhere. So at the end of the day, it's really important for us that we're getting those players that want to bleed maroon and gold and wear that M on their chest. That is the number one thing.
Gotcha. So I do need to wrap up. 2 quick questions. One, what advice do you have for players and parents who are kind of still not yet committed but still want to play D1, especially for goalies, where there really just aren't a lot of spots for folks who are eligible to commit at this point? So that'll be my second to last question, my penultimate question.
Yeah, and that goes along with COVID. I think COVID's made it hard for the players of this graduating year, next graduating year, because of the COVID rules of having a 5th year. So there's limited spots. So a couple of things, stick with it. I mean, don't feel like you're ever bugging a coach or a team. Send those coaching staffs an email, send videos, stick with it. There might have to be, if you really strongly want to play D1, you might have to take a gap year and come in as a freshman the following year, just because of the roster spots and everything. So I would say those would be my 2 biggest things, to just stick with it and to make sure that you're getting your name out there, and along with some video to back it up, is just super important.
Awesome. Okay, last question. Where can folks learn more about the program specifically? I know you guys have camps. Are you going to have camps next summer? Is that a great way to just get on your radar and really see you up close?
Yeah, I believe Brad runs a few camps. I feel bad, but I don't have the email knowledge to share with you with that. But you can go on the University of Minnesota Gophersports.com website. I believe there's a link in there to find out when we have those camps. Not only that is, I got 2 young ones at home. I run a lot of mite and squirt clinics, do small group lessons with kids of the appropriate age that I can work with. And then we'll be running some other clinics as well in the area. One of them is a youth hockey hub clinic that's at Ritter Arena as well.
Awesome.
So we're certainly out there, and we're seen, and we love working with young athletes and sharing our knowledge with them to hopefully get them better.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry, I do have one last question. Are you able to bring your dog to work at University of Minnesota?
Oakley, yeah. Oakley, I sneak her in there every now and then. Dogs make the world a better place. I don't think one person has a frown on their face when they see a dog. So she makes some appearances here and there.
All right, cool. Awesome. Well, Natalie, I really want to thank you so much. This has like really been outstanding. You're just learning from your experience and your advice. It's just been outstanding. So thank you so much for taking the time to share it with everybody. And I know I'm going to be getting direct messages saying like, this was one of the best episodes that we've had. So thank you so much for taking the time.
It's absolutely my pleasure. And if I can help in any way, just, my email is easily available on the U of M website as well.
I really want to thank Natalie for coming on the podcast. It was great to hear all about what made her one of the best U.S. hockey players to play the game, the mentality she had every time she stepped on the ice, and how she has transitioned into being a top college coach. And remember, if you got something out of today's episode, we'd really appreciate it if you'd like, follow, subscribe, and even better if you could leave us a review so we can keep sharing this important hockey information with folks just like you.